and welcome to another enchanting episode of Serverless Sorcery, where magic meets machines in the boundless realm of generative AI and serverless architectures. I'm your host, Rinaldi, here to guide you through the captivating crossroads of creativity and code. What's our aim? To unravel the mysteries that lie at the heart of autonomous code creation and explore the arcane arts of serverless computing. Last episode, we had Boy and Zivik to talk about generative AI in IAC and CDK, and that was a fantastic episode. And today, I'm very excited to have our guest for this episode, Girish Mukim, with us. Girish is an AWS Solutions Architect with a remarkable 17-year career in the IT industry. His primary expertise lies in infrastructure projects, particularly in the realm of database management. He specializes in assisting clients with cloud transformation, including migrations from on-premises systems to the AWS cloud and cloud-native development using microservices. He's also deeply involved in crafting cloud adoption strategies, designing target architectures, and ensuring cost effectiveness. Girish collaborates with AWS through the Migration Acceleration Program to provide clients with efficient migration solutions. He is actively engaged within the AWS community and is a distinguished participant in the AWS Community Builders program. Girish also recently has been accepted as an AWS Ambassador. Congrats, Girish. And so with that, welcome to the show.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks, Rinaldi, for generous introduction. And I'm happy to be here. So very excited to talk about the AWS services.
Beautiful. And I think we have quite a good episode right now, right, Girish? Like we were going to be talking about Lambdas. We're going to be talking about how you're using Bedrock, particularly to integrate within Lambdas and in general, a lot more of that, right?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So do you want to give a brief introduction to our topic for today and what our listeners can also expect from it too?
Yeah, sure. So as Rinaldi mentioned, we are going to talk about AWS Bedrock service, which is generative AI. This is a new child in the block. And this is like generative AI service, which recently went GA in the month of September. So it's fairly new for everyone. And it's like we can see the excitement, right? Like when we are talking about Gen AI nowadays. So this is the same service we are talking about. And we also will get deep into like integration with other like a developer service which we use for function as a service, which is Lambda. We talk a bit about that, and we also will touch upon like advantages of using Bedrock, and that is like the topic which we want to cover today.
So from your use cases currently, what are the unique capabilities so far that Bedrock models has been bringing into serverless architectures?
Yeah, sure. Nice questions to start with, Rinaldi. So first of all, let me just brief about like Amazon Bedrock, right? Because as I say, like it is a fairly new service. So I just want to take a couple of minutes just to brief about that. So Amazon Bedrock is a fully managed service which offers foundational model. If you have used any of the managed services from Amazon or AWS, it is like giving that seamless experience for the users. Like one is for provisioning service as well as for using service in your code or your applications. It is a fully managed service for FM's foundational model, and there are few service providers or FM providers, which is like AI21 Labs, Entropic, Cohere, Stability AI, and Amazon itself. And this is a server. So this is just an introduction to Amazon Bedrock, what it is, but there are different capabilities. When you ask Rinaldi, like what are the advantages or capabilities like or features this service brings, there are a variety of those, and I'll just touch base on few of those. For example, like it is a managed service, so that takes out like administration piece from the customers, so you just start using the service without worrying about infrastructure. And this is serverless again, so you do not need to provision servers yourself. You do not need to worry about like managing and any operational aspect of that service, right? So that is like a serverless aspect to it. And as it is part of the AWS ecosystem, that gives a good integration with other services, AWS services, be it a CloudWatch for monitoring, or even like creating your applications using machine language. Machine language, you can use like SageMaker. So that is a service integration which is out of the box. Even like Lambda, which I touched upon initially. So those are the advantages to have it in AWS ecosystem. and then you can even fine tune your models. Like you can use foundational model what AWS provided, but on top of that, you can fine tune it for your own use cases. And whatever data you're using, and that is the beauty of it, right? Whatever data you are using for fine tuning that model, be it like your own data, like which you are using for fine tune on, and even like your prompts or inferences you are getting or response you are getting from FMs. So those are all is your data. No way that AWS is going to use that for training their base model. AWS is very vocal about that. So whatever data you're using, that's your own data for fine tuning, and that's not being used by third parties who are presenting this AI models, or not even by AWS. So that is a big advantage. And other security aspects we'll talk a bit about is like your data will be encrypted. You get encryption at rest and in transit, and it's for most of the AWS services, like that capability is there, and that is carried forward in Bedrock as well. And you get VPC endpoints. Like it's getting into big deeper into like a implementation, but you can use definitely AWS private link, which gives you using VPC endpoint, so that you can keep your traffic, any components which in within your VPC accessing Bedrock, you can keep your traffic inside your account or inside your VPC instead of going through public endpoints. So that is like a few advantages, and you can think of variety of use cases. Like to answer your question in simple terms, right? There are multiple capabilities available in Bedrock, and you can just use that for variety of applications where generative AI can be a use case.
Couldn't have put it better myself, Girish. Thank you so much for that.
Thank you.
And I feel that you brought up a lot of great points, and I feel it's really the ease of use of these foundational models. I mean, fairly, as far as I remember, started with ChatGPT, right? We saw its capabilities, we saw how easy it is to be able to utilize not only its UI. We really started with just demo testing its UI on the testing environment. Then we started using its API, and then Bedrock came along, offering a lot of foundational models that we can actually try to get insights from, which is a brilliant thing. And it's a very good thing as well that you did mention on the privacy aspect too, because it's been certainly something that has been subject to a lot of debate, particularly. And it's great that Amazon has been taking a lot of care in that and addressing a lot of the concerns about privacy head on.
So ease of using service, right? I'll just give you my experience when you brought that point. And this is really a useful thing for new beginners to learn from generative AI, that you can go to management console, and as you're using any of the other services, right? Same way you can start using Bedrock. You can give your prompt, like I'm sure like many of us has tried Chat GPT. So this is nothing new for us from giving prompts and getting a response right away. So that same experience you can find on management console. And it's not like only that, like you can extend that experience through APIs. Like you can build your application, and through APIs you can even get the response or inference with your prompts. And you can be very creative with the prompt, as you can with any of the generative AI models. So that both the ways you can interact with the service, and I find that is interesting for at least for new beginners who start using generative AI.
100%, Girish. And it's really great that AWS does provide that playground for us to try out these particular services and actually have a feel for them before we actually start implementing them within our API. So that's a really good point. And now let's move the conversation a bit to what you've been doing with it and your work within trying to integrate with Lambdas as well. So do you want to tell our listeners as well what you've been doing as well with Lambdas and how you're integrating right now with Bedrock too?
Yeah, sure. So as I said, like I'm exploring this Bedrock service for sure, and there are multiple capabilities we talked about. And one of the capability I was told is like accessing your foundational model through a single API. When I say single API, it's literally it. Like you have an invoke model API where you can use the same API to access multiple of this foundational model. So what I'm doing for my integration with Bedrock through code is like using like a Lambda service, which is again AWS service for function as a service. So I'm writing code in Python and invoking using single API to invoke Bedrock, and I'm trying with one of the foundational model from AI 10-to-1 lab, but similar API can be used on Stability AI, which is like image generation foundational model as part of this Bedrock ecosystem. So that is what I'm like currently doing, and that integration is really something very exciting, because like you can be creative with your prompts. You can use this for various other applications or use cases. So like learning that is pretty simple, or like you can like just use a Python code and simple code, and you can like I have put a couple of artifacts to that effect. Like I have a blog post, or I have created a video on that, and we talk a bit about that later. But I just want to tell you that that is the integration which I am working on. I'm using Python as a runtime for my Lambda, which can be anything. If you're comfortable with any other runtime, you can use that. But I'm using Python. So essentially, like that is what I'm doing. And yeah, I can just go through the steps if that is something which add value. But as I said, like I have already put artifacts, and we can give uh, like pointers to that. So that is what I'm using, like a Lambda integration with Bedrock.
Great. And you did mention as well that you've particularly been using AI 21 models right now for your experimentations. That's actually
Yeah,
something I've been mostly experimenting with too, because I feel like their models so far have been very good compared to a lot of the other options they're currently having. But I was also
yeah.
wondering if you've tried some of the other models too. How do you find that compares with AI 21, like Claude or the Amazon Titan? Have you tried them as well? And how have you found it?
Yeah, so I tried AI 21 Labs. I tried Stability AI. There are a couple of models which I tried, and like, I didn't try other models to be honest. But Stability AI I did, and that is quite easy to use. Again, like as I said, like it is a single API. So I used just to generate a simple picture out of my prompt, and that was seamless as well. Like same like AI 21 Labs. So I didn't find like that difference between. I actually working on it. Like when you look into use case or start using that model more, then you will try to appreciate differences. But I don't see like based on my testing with these two models, there is any like a different approach while you are accessing or integrating this with your code.
Right. And I
Yeah.
think the great thing is how much care and open source development there has been in regards to the Python community, particularly, I feel, within these kinds of APIs for Bedrock. So I know that one of the tools that some of the listeners might already be using as well is LangChain, for example, which is currently
Right.
continually being developed as well. So what kind of tools or libraries have you been using in Python, particularly for your development?
Yeah, so LangChain is a really good use case, what you just brought up, right? And there is like a lot of development there. I have tried LangChain chain as well, and that is like a pretty good use case or pretty good development on like AI front. And I like when I'm working on Lambda, particularly Python. What I found, right, when I'm if you worked on Lambda, or anyone our listeners are working on Lambda with Python, we know like we need to import Boto3 library. Boto3 library help us even to create a Bedrock client as a first step, and then start integrating or start working with the API. So Boto3 library is one of the things which you have to have yeah, like have to have used for this Python code. And what I found with Lambda in particular, if you just import Boto3 and start using it as you do for any other your Python development, that is not working in Lambda. And then you need to use or make sure that you're using the latest version of Boto3, which is not like out of the box. That's what I found. And you need to create a Lambda layer, and like create Lambda layer with that particular Boto3 version, which is latest version. Then use that layer in your function, and then things start working. So that is just one of the caveats I found, and that is something like our users will be benefit when you like a user start using it. But that is like Boto3 specifically. Then I just use JSON import, so that I can work with like response what I am getting. So response, when you're getting, you are getting a JSON stream sort of output, and you just need to get the body out of it and text out of it, so that make meaningful conversation with your application. So that what I have seen. So these are like a couple of things I have tried, and LangChain is something I just want to explore a bit more than what I did so far.
Definitely. I feel that in my own experiences, LangChain has been a very powerful tool in helping a lot of folks out there help create powerful chatbots due to its context and conversation retention, which is one of the things that a lot of people right now are using Bedrock for and using foundational models in general for. And it really is powerful to be able to continue doing that and building on the capabilities of being able to process the text accordingly, remember it, and accordingly give responses based on that. And
Yeah.
you mentioned fine tuning as well. Have you had any tries in that as well? Trying fine
Yeah.
tuning something as well?
No, I didn't. And the most the most important factor there is cost, because as we know, this foundational model, there is a cost involved when you are fine tuning it, and there is a cost involved when you are using it for prompt and inference, right? So I just want to touch base on that because I'm sure that is going to help everyone, right? So cost is like for creating giving prompts, so that is depending on your tokens. So how much tokens you're using for prompting your foundational model, and how many how much data you are pulling as part of that inference. So that is cost involved in that. And fine tuning is like, I'm sure like it is costlier, and as I am playing in my playground, right, I don't want to incur that cost, so I never tried fine tuning so far.
Definitely. And that's a great point you brought up, Girish. Yeah,
Yeah.
I personally haven't really played around with it as well because as you mentioned, cost is a big factor. And you
Yeah.
also have to be able to employ the provisioned uh, capacity.
Right. As you touched on that, right? So there are two ways this pricing model works in Bedrock. One is like on demand, and other one is provisional throughput. So how that works is on demand is like pay as you use. So you just give prompts, you get inference, and whatever token numbers are being utilized, so AWS will charge you based on that. So that is on demand for you. And then for provisioning, if you know your use case, you know like how much throughput you're anticipating. So it is cheaper and it is better to use provision throughput. But that is when you know your application well. When you are building something from the scratch or something new, then you don't know that, right? So on demand is a way to go forward. But there are thought behind that when AWS put this pricing. So that is a great as well. So on demand as well as provisioning. So far, I used on demand for my testing, and for obvious reason, because we don't know how much usage. So pay as you go is the best way when you don't know many of the things upfront. So that is something users should be aware of.
Definitely. I feel that we are still very much pioneers within generative
Yeah.
AI, so it definitely makes sense to go for on demand. I think in general, individuals,
Right.
corporations, all of them are still experimenting with this new technology and seeing where it gets them. And that's the thing as well about generative AI, right? Because oftentimes as well, it's continued iterative development to actually see what kind of prompts actually gets you where and each generative AI LLM always behaves differently. Each foundation model behaves differently. That's always how it has been. So it
Yeah.
definitely takes a while to be able to find what works best for you. And that's a very
Yeah.
interesting thing. Now, how have you found integrating these developments with Bedrock API, for example, through Lambda into, for example, web apps? Do
Yeah.
you feel that it's an easy process, or do you feel it's, a bit challenging, or?
Yeah, so when we are talking about ease of using, right? Definitely there is, because as I said, it's a managed service, so it becomes so much easy because a lot of hard work is abstracted from users, so you can just use single API to interact with it. So that is ease of using it, but that doesn't mean that we have our learning curves, because when I started using it, there were a few issues where we just need to investigate and troubleshoot. That involves in any development. So I found the similar in Bedrock as well, but it's quite easy to integrate. When you know the nuances, as I mentioned, you need to have both to three latest versions. So you create a layer and attach it to Lambda. So if you know that, then it becomes so much easy. But finding that out, it takes time. So that involves learning. So definitely it's a easy development in that sense. But for developer has to learn new way of working with this foundational model. That is for sure. And yeah, AWS is really doing very great job there. Like when this like API is like given as a single endpoint for us to reach and then use any of this foundational model. That is great way of like putting it out for the public. And the second thing I found interesting is not only invoke and get your output once, that is invoke model API, but there is an thought behind giving a streaming option. What I mean by that is there is another, like there are two sets of APIs which we can use for invoking foundational model. One is invoke model, and second one is invoke model with response streaming. So what does that mean is you give the prompt to your foundational model, and before complete output is ready, it starts streaming output to your user. For example, you working on some chatbot, right? And you want to like have your like audience or your user engage. So instead of foundational model taking time and giving complete output, it starts streaming out the output, like right at the set go. So that is a beautiful feature I found, and I have used it, and it's like works seamlessly as well. So there are few things you will uncover when you start working on it or you just start working on it for sure.
Wholeheartedly agree with that, Girish. And
Yeah.
well, echoing your sentiment as well, one of the things why a lot of developers have been finding a bit of struggle in using Bedrock, I mean, aside from its ease of use, of course, is
Yeah.
the fact that it's very new. As you mentioned, there's a big learning curve. There's a learning curve with everything, right? And
Yeah.
it's unavoidable even with new AWS services, with every new ways of doing things. I mean, look, when we learned about, for example, using other FMs as well to be able to use them properly through their APIs, it took us a while as well to figure that out. So it's really,
Yeah.
I feel, the lack of documented cases that actually help us learn quickly, which is why we're doing what we're doing, right? We're trying to get the word out more to the
Yeah.
community. We're trying to pioneer more use cases. We're trying to share more of that, and just trying to bring more of that forward for the community to be able to explore for themselves as well. And
Yeah.
of course, it's really powerful, I feel, because we don't have to learn how to call the APIs for each particular foundational model. We
Yeah.
already have all of them within one platform, and I think that's what really one of the biggest selling points of Bedrock. We can just call, whether it be AI 21, Claude, Titan,
Correct.
any model,
Yeah.
you could just like call easily from that.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, that is what like makes it easy to use. But as you said, when you start using it, there will be like issues, there will be learning, all that has to happen because there is not much out there in the like documentation. So because people are still learning, using, working with different use cases, but it's exciting phase, right? Like because we get to learn something like new every day when you have started working with AI. So that is the beauty of it.
So moving on to our topic of security, Girish, you mentioned before that we had to be able to understand the necessary considerations for privacy, security, and it's definitely something that a lot of companies are talking about, and they're actively being wary of. A lot of companies are still trying to be careful of how they pioneer this new technology and ensure that their data, for example, is
Yeah.
not improperly leaked out and all that. I was wondering, how are you currently treating security within your developments, and do you have any tips as well of people developing these kinds of applications too, with considerations to security?
Yeah, for sure. As much like I'm using as experimentation mode, right? In my own playground, I'm not much worried about like security at the moment. But definitely, this is a big topic or big consideration when you are putting these use cases in your business, right? So security, there are thoughts behind security for sure from AWS, and a few like I want to call out few things or double click on few things. Like for example, like when you're using any of your data for like fine tuning this model, right? That is like concern from for customers, like when they are putting their data and using this service gen AI services. And it's not concern with specifically for Bedrock, but in general for generative AI. When you are fine tuning models with your own data, what happens to your data? right? So that is a concern. So AWS tackle that well. What they are doing is like whatever data you are using. For example, you are using like a RAG, right? Retrieval augmented generation, and using fine tuning your model. Both the use cases, whatever data you're using for tuning it, and prompt you are giving or inferences you are getting, all this is your own data. So AWS is not using it for any other reason for tuning based models, or like third parties are not going to get that data. So that is the security part to your data, right? And second thing is your data will be encrypted at rest and in transit. So that is like encryption is in place. And the last thing is like when you're using AWS private links, which is a VPC endpoints if you have used in the past. So whatever data you're using, like that data is private to your VPC. So traffic is not exposed to internet or public domain in any way. So these are a few considerations which are in place for this Bedrock foundational model. And I find it like very promising when we see this thought behind security for bringing these services up for our clients.
That's a great
Yeah.
summarization of that, Girish, and couldn't have said better myself too. I feel that aside from that, it's really going to be just normal considerations in regards to if when you're building web apps or anything really. So I think Girish covered the Bedrock component pretty well, but aside from that, it's really up to you as well to take into consideration what else your app needs when you actually integrate Bedrock. Like for example, are you the authorized person to be able to run these particular prompts basically when you're actually using
Yeah.
services that actually run prompts? Like for example, setting through appropriate JWT tokens and authenticating them from the Lambda is one of the examples I can think of before you actually are able to be authorized to execute prompts. Like stuff like these is what reduces your attack surface even further, and just in general helps to create a much cleaner environment for you to be able to ensure that there are no security risks.
Yeah, perfect. And there is a like a IAM integration, identity and access management service from AWS. There is a out of the box integration with Bedrock. So like you can be like very granular with your access to like for example Lambda. When you're using a Lambda low role, then you can be granular with what access you want to give to that particular Lambda function. And it's in general for any of the service which is interacting with Bedrock. So that is the integration which we should be leveraging a lot when we are talking about like access. And that is a great point you brought up, Rinaldi.
Definitely. And that's a great point too, Garish. And I was wondering for you, what do you see as the future for Bedrock development with Lambdas as well, or in general? How do you feel this will more or less shape the landscape of using Lambda functions or just in general for generative AI? And where do you feel you want to see us go as developers towards that direction?
Yeah, sure. So I'm very, very optimistic on the usage of generative AI in going like in coming years. We should not say years, even months, right? Because development is so rapidly happening in GI world that every week or every day we are getting new news around AI. So I'm hoping same is going to happen with Bedrock. There will be a surge in adoption for generative AI and Bedrock in particular, because that is giving us a very good platform to start our coding without thinking about anything on the platform side. So that is what the plus point for this service, and that is going to be leveraged by developers. And this is our opportunity to use this tool and think about different use cases, or be innovative in like what use cases we can think of and put this in action. And definitely is a great tool to learn. So anybody who is listening is definitely, I encourage, try it out yourself. Go into AWS Management Console, try it out, few prompts, choose like models you want to use or work with, and start using it. And then next step will be to put it in your code. Like start with a simple use case, just like create some function, and or create some IDE, like take your IDE and start integrating with the API. See how this response are coming, how to use like your particular coding to present that response in the way you want for your users to use. So that is what I'm thinking a developer should leverage it. Like even I am thinking as the next step for me, right? I'm planning to create a front end. Like as of now, we talked only of the back end, right? Creating a Lambda function, integrating with the Bedrock. But what about the applications or front end for your end users? So I'm thinking to building something like that to create like web app or a web portal wherein we can just work with, and that is mainly for learning and trying it out how we can integrate front end with the back end. A lot of talks are going for back end development, but I'm quite excited about like how you can use that to present in a better way to your end users, and think about any of the use case and you can implement it in here, right? So that is what I'm seeing a lot of possibilities in coming future.
Great points, Girish. I think you really stepped on a good one there, which is basically about developing on the front end side of things. I feel with the current developments of Bedrock and all other foundational models, one of the things we always forget to consider is that at the end of the day, we're developers. We're trying to develop for the end user who would prefer to see a better looking interface to be able to run their particular queries, do their particular tasks. So that's a really good point that you brought up there. And I feel it's certainly something that I'm particularly trying out as well. I'm starting to try to implement Bedrock into more of my front end projects as well, try to essentially create a good consistency of backend and front end implementation, and more or less try to be able to get users to interact with Bedrock better than actually having to like write out prompts and all that. So, and we've been seeing that more as well. We've been seeing a lot more use cases right now too. There's a lot of sites now that actually are starting to have it provided and distributed as well. So it's a great thing to be able to see that development.
Yeah, for sure. Awesome. Like, yeah, I'm glad that you are thinking on the same line, and I'm hoping to see something in the future, as part of your development. I'm excited to even see that, Rinaldi. Right.
Likewise, Girish. Same for you as well. But that's all the time we have for today. Girish, thank you so much again for being on Serverless Sorcery and sharing your experiences with all our listeners. I'm sure they've been able to bring back a lot of learnings based on your experiences. And to our listeners, thank you so much as well for tuning in. Your quest for knowledge and your companionship on this exploration is what fuels our venture into the mysteries of generative AI and serverless architectures. Remember to subscribe, share, and provide us feedback or questions through reaching out to our podcast page on LinkedIn at serverless-sorcery, or through my LinkedIn profile as well, Rinaldi at Rinaldi Gondesbroto, or Twitter at RinaldiG. And Girish, where can our listeners reach you at?
Yeah, thanks first of all, Rinaldi, for inviting. It's a great discussion with you, and I'm sure like users will appreciate that you putting it out. And yeah, user can reach me on LinkedIn, right? Girish Mukim. You can find me on LinkedIn. I run my YouTube channels. I invite people to join me there, and even my website, imaginetechverse.com. So you can see a few new exciting write-ups on AWS. So I invite people to join me there.
Beautiful. Thanks so much, Girish. And I definitely look forward to seeing more of your developments as well with the Lambda too. And your future developments within the front end sounds beautiful as well. Definitely looking forward to seeing those too. And yeah, I'm definitely hoping to catch you soon as well. Again, catch up with you soon too. And thank you again. And to all our viewers, thank you so much. And we'll see you in the next episode. Bye, all.
Thank you.